What's up, everybody, and welcome to our Java tutorial number 6, hosted by Moritz, the coder. I do believe that you have been enjoying the previous videos and you are learning, and it has been an amazing journey in terms of learning Java. And I do hope you also realize that much of the work has to be done by you. I only introduce you to concepts, then depending on how far you want to go, you do your own reading, right? In this tutorial, I am going to discuss of a sequence array or a variable that can hold multiple values or items, called a hash map. Previously we spoke about a list, right? And we will see how we can get a list from our hash map. Cool. So the first question is, what is a hash map, right? So that's the first question that one gets to ask themselves. So a hash map, it is a collection of key value pairs where each key is associated with a value. Take this for example, right? You have a list of students and their age, right? So the names of the students, we can refer to them as the key, right? And then if you provide the name of the student, you expect to get the age or their age, right? Let's look at the syntax. So as I've said, I don't really much cover too much. This is an introduction to a concept, and I show you how to play around with a concept on a basic level. But then based on how far you want to go, you have to put in the work, learn different methods. I've already given you the site to refer to, which is W3 Schools. Later on during the course, I'm going to introduce you to the official documentation of Java, where you will get to learn everything about Java, right? And also the features that were added from to the previous versions, so that they can come up with the new version, right? What was removed or that, we will discuss that in the future tutorial. Cool. So with the hash map, I know you might be seeing something and you're like, what the hell is this? What it is, I will walk you through the whole thing and it will become easy as we move along. Cool. So when you declare a hash map, the first thing you want to do is to call out the name, right? So it's a hash map. Then you're going to specify the type that is going to be held inside your hash map, right? So you will see that you have a key and you have a value. This is the pair. So this is the key, and then you specify the data type. You remember from the very first video we discussed on how you declare a variable, right? You specify the type. In this case, you just specify the type only. There's no variable name. You're gonna name your map, right? But there's no variable yet. So it's the type. So if it's a string, it's a string. If it's an integer, it's an integer. If it's a char, it's a char. And then you have a value data type, right? So if you want, so if you were using an example that we just explained now of a student and their age, right? So the student name is a string, so the key data type will be a string. Age will be integer. And then after this, I was supposed to have a space and the name of my dictionary or my hash map as it's known in Java, right? So just be on the watch out for that, but then I will properly demonstrate this during the coding session. I don't know how I missed the name. And then we create new, it's a new object, right? And then hash map, create less than sign and then greater than sign. You can repeat the same thing, key data type, value data type, but then if you want them to be just like that, then it's fine. But then there's a question though. What if I define different types? Like instead of saying this is an integer, this is a string, or this is a string, integer, vice versa, I do a char and a boolean. What would happen? I'm gonna leave that to you guys to explore. As I mentioned, it's easier to learn things through exploring. Cool. So let's talk about, so we have discussed how you declare a hash map, right? So now what we're going to talk about is how do you add items to your hash map, right? There are different methods that you use to add items to your hash map. So you can use a method called put, right? So this is a method that allows you to have two parameters. You have the key and then you have the value, right? So the syntax is the name of your hash map and then dot, right? And then is the name of the function or the method that you want to use. Then you provide the key. The key is going to be the name of the student, then the value is their age. If we are creating a hash map that has the student name and the associated age to them. I hope this is not confusing anyone, but we will explore more of these during the coding session. Cool. So now let's discuss how do you get the value that is associated to a key. If we are to refer to the example that we have, how do we get the age of a specific student, right? So the way you do it is it's your hash map name, right? Dot, and then there's a method called get, which allows you to provide the key. Then it will return the what again? It will return the value associated with that key. Coolness. And let's discuss a few things. We'll break this thing down during the coding session. I just want to cover the slides first, then we will do the application, which we're going to spend much of our time because we are not doing theory, or we are not theory based, but we are more on the application. But a little bit of a theory just to clear up the air in some concepts is very much important, especially for beginners. Cool. So to get all keys of a hash map, you use a method or a function. I don't know, I'm using a function because in Java we mostly speak of methods, but in Python we use Java, so we use functions, so that's why I'm just using these terms interchangeably. So but then they mean one and the same thing. It's a function, it's a method, right? It's a function that does this function. It's a method with a specific function. I don't know if that can be defined as that, but the method and the function is one and the same thing. It's a block of code that only runs when you call it, right? Cool. So this returns a list of all the keys in your dictionary. So if I say list, it's one and the same thing as an array, right? Cool. So this returns a list of all keys of a hash map, right? So this is something you could just use as reference. So you can use the theory base just to get the idea of a hash map, and then you start asking yourself a question as to how do I put it all in code and see it in action, because speaking about something theoretically, so it makes sense, right, when you speak about it, but then applying it, will you get the results that you expect? Cool. So the question that one gets to have is, how can I get all the values of my hash map, right? So you have a method called values that gives you the list of all the values in your hash map. I believe these 9 minutes haven't been confusing anyone. If they have, just bear with me and hold on. It's gonna make sense right now as we are going to the coding side. Cool. So let's open up our terminal, and then we'll close that, right? Create a new tab. There we go. Then we are gonna start applying, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by creating our file. So since we're dealing with HashMap, we can just call it HashMaps. That's gonna be the name of our class, right? Cool. So the reason I'm calling it HashMaps is because there is a class already that is called HashMap. Cool. There we go. So it's a hash map, and I just mentioned that it's a class. So in order for us to be able to access its methods, we have to import the class. So import import java.util dot hash map. That's where the function, or that's where the class is located, right? And then our class is class hash maps. Ooh, there we go. And then it's public static void main, right? And then we have a string x. Cool. So the first thing we're gonna discuss is creating a hash map. There we go. Then we're gonna discuss how do you add items. To a hash map. I hope now you are no longer freaking out or getting overwhelmed, as we are going to break it down, right? We're going to do it step by step and do it in action. And then when you see it in action, then it makes it easy for you to understand, right? So we're adding items to a hash map, right? So now, since we have managed, or we have successfully managed to add items to the hash map, how do we get a value associated with a certain key, right? Getting a value associated with a key. Cool. After that, getting let's get all keys in a hash, all keys of a hash map. Getting all values of a hash map. Then I want to show you this nice thing of displaying a key and its associated value. I know I messed up there. Associated value. There we go. So now we have set up everything that we're going to discuss, right? And you might also be learning something, or the way that I do things, that I first direct myself as to what I'm going to do, and then I go to the next step, then the next step, then the next step. So before you even start creating a program, the first thing you want to do is you want to write something called a pseudocode. A pseudocode is a code that will never have any compile errors, because it's not meant to be compiled. It's to help you implement your design for your program. So this is the flow, right? So what we're doing now is we're gonna start by creating a hash map, right? Following what we discussed previously, right? So to create a hash map, the first thing you do is call the class hash map, and then you have those signs, less than sign and greater than sign, and then you specify the data type for the key and the data type for the value, right, as we discussed in our slides. So let's use that example that we want to create a hash map with names of students and their age. To do that, we're gonna have string, that's the name, integer, that's gonna be the age, and then we say student details, right? and then this is a new object. So you create a new object of a class. I know we haven't started talking about the object oriented concepts as of yet, but we are heading there. Cool. Then it's a hash map, right? And then you have this. As I mentioned in the slides, you can try to explore with this part, right? So you have to specify the data type and the value. So with this new object that you're creating, are you going to create in such a way that it has the same values or the same data types as these, or are you going to create a different data types? See if you're going to get an error or it's going to allow you. And then if it allows you, then you know that you can play around with your hash map, changing the data types of the keys and the values, right? As I've said, I will leave that up to you to explore, just so that I don't confuse anyone. So this is you successfully creating a hash map. So I will save my file, go to my tab for compiling. Oh, they got messed up. Okay, cool. Normally my right is where I'm compiling. Let's that's what I have. Okay, cool. Let's clear this. Then we type javec hashmap.java, right? Then let's see if our compiler will complain. Our compiler doesn't complain, and then it's Java HashMaps, right? And then we have no problem. So that means that we have successfully created a hash map. Now, how do we add items to our list? No, to our hash map, right? That's the question that we get to ask ourselves. So to add items to our list, to our hash map, I don't know why I'm focusing more on list. You're just gonna specify the name, student details. So that's the name of your hash map. Dot put, and then you provide the what? The name. So I'm just gonna provide Morex the coder, and then the value. Let's just say that I'm 50 years old. Not that I'm 50 years old. I'm just making an example. Cool. I think let's add another one. Student details dot put, then Java. How old is Java? Maybe 600. I'm just kidding. I'm just putting a random integer. Then that's that student details dot put, let's say Python. Python. Let's say this one is 10 years old. I'm just making an example, right? And then I save my program, and then let me quickly create my run button to not punish myself all over. Cool. So it compiles and executes. So if it compiles and executes and the compiler doesn't so if it gets to execute, because your executable file will always be a file that is not having any syntax error, right? So since this one that you have here doesn't have any syntax error, that means that your compiler didn't find anything to complain about in the code. So now we have successfully added items to a dictionary. I know we haven't started seeing what's in that dictionary using the print function. So let's get a value associated with the key. So we already have a dictionary, and we're gonna start now. So the thing is, I'm avoiding just printing out from there because I want to move step by step. So you successfully create a hash map. Why am I saying dictionary? But please just bear in mind, dictionary, hash map, one and the same thing. Just that in Python it's called a dictionary, because it's a class called dict in Python. And then in Java we call it a hash map because the class was named after a hash map. But it's one and the same thing, right? So if I say dictionary, I'm talking about a hash map. Yeah, as we progress, right? So you wanna follow through a certain steps so that you successfully finish your work, right? In terms of your program, right? So the first thing is you create You create, you compile, you test if there are no errors, and then you move to the next step. So if it doesn't, so basically at this point, you're focusing more on the syntax, if the syntax is correct or not. You're not more focused on whether the logic is correct or not. But then now, that's where the logic is gonna come into play. Because now you have successfully created a dictionary, you've added the dictionary. So now you want to access the items that are in that dictionary. If you didn't successfully create a dictionary with the items, that means that you should be getting an error when you're trying to access the value that is associated with the key that you thought you created or added in your dic or in your hash map, not a dictionary, a hash map, right? Cool. So now getting a value that is associated with the key. So we're going to use our favorite method for display, print line. And then what we're going to do is display the value, right? Student details dot get, it returns that value, and then I'm gonna provide the name, so it's Morex the coder, and then system dot out dot print line, right? Print line, and then it's student details. I know I'm not supposed to have that, and I'm not supposed to have the parentheses either. And then it's get, I'm not getting 0, I'm getting Java, right? But we have a problem there. There we go, and we have to close that, and then we have that system dot out dot print line, right? Student details dot get dot python. There we go, and we have accessed all the values. Now it's time to check if our logic is correct or not, and we get the values associated with the keys, right? So now, which means that when you are at this step, you are sure that the previous steps have been successfully executed. If you had any error, if you get any error, that means you have to go back to your steps, walk through the steps to see where you could have made an error. And guys, don't be afraid of getting errors. Errors helps you become a better programmer. Don't try to be someone that just wants to run code on the first time without any errors. I know I'm just running my code without any errors, but I've been practicing, I've been dealing with Java. I wouldn't say I have a year knowing Java, just that the amount of time and the effort I put in to learn Java helped me to be like a person with experience in terms of knowing my syntax very well, mostly because of the way that I studied my Java. I didn't use an IDE, I used a text editor, but then that way I know how each and every keyword in Java has to be spelled. I know I mess up in terms of grammar, but when it comes to Java language, I don't mess up. English wise, sometimes we mess up, but then when it comes to the coding side, there's no messing up, because the compiler is not going to be merciful that you just made a mistake, forgotten the semicolon or one thing. It's going to complain, and then you have to go and fix the mistake. The more you do it, the more it becomes easy, right? Cool. So now let's get to the next step, where we're getting all the keys, right, in our hash map, right? We want to get all the keys of our hash map, right? So to do this, we can use a for loop. You remember we spoke about a for loop, right? And then we have a for each loop. So recalling, so it's actually, let's do it that way so that we can also recall the things that we did previously, and then you get to see how everything gets to be combined in one thing. You learn one part, and then you apply it on a more complicated concept. You see how you're supposed to learn. You must master the concepts before. Once you master the concepts you've covered before, it is easy for you to apply that when you learn new concepts, because trust me, you're not going to be able to know everything on the word go. You have to know the previous concepts, and then as you learn more things, you'll be applying the new concepts plus the concepts you have already learned previously, because already if you have a list, you know, okay, cool, what do I want? If I want a if I want to use a for each loop to iterate through my list, I have to know the data type of my items. Once I know that, then I can easily iterate through my list, right? So now let's get the keys. Going back, our keys is of type string, right? Cool. So there we go. Are you guys ready for this? Cool. For that you already know. And then what's the data type of my key in my dictionary, for each and every key in my HashMap? I don't know why I keep saying dictionary. I guess it's because I've been dealing much with Python mostly, and then I just used to that. But then it's the same thing. So I know one might say it's not the same thing, but as far as I see, it is the same thing, because this is it's a key value pair. Yes, in Python the class is called a dictionary. In Java they call it a HashMap. But because they name them differently doesn't mean that they're not the same thing. Yes, they might be having different methods, or they actually work differently in terms of the way they work in Java and the way they work in Python, right? But then at the end of the day, they do the same thing. You have a key, you have it assigned a value, and if you want to access or you want to get that value, you just provide the key. Cool. So we provide the data type for a key, and then we can just name it key. And then now we have to get the list of all the keys, right? You remember from our discussion, the first thing we do, specify the name of the HashMap. Student details, right? Dot key set. What does this do? This return a list or an array of keys, right? Then after that, this is not Python. See? Remember the talk we had about how am I able to switch between all these languages? It's still tricky a bit, because I've only started playing around with all these languages all at the same time last month when I opened my YouTube channel. So it's still a process, but I am getting there. Though I know exactly that, okay, cool, now I'm making a mistake. So I know it that now I'm making a mistake. I'm using the syntax on the wrong file. If I'm dealing with the Java file, I cannot use the Python syntax. If I'm on a Python syntax, I cannot use the Java syntax. Cool. So what we're going to do there is we're going to use our favorite guy, system.out.print, and then we print what? The key. To make this simple, let's also do this system.out.print line and line star keys star and line no, not zero. There we go. Then we're gonna come here, and we don't want to do that. We just want to print line, so print line. There we go. And let's execute and see if we're gonna get any error. It's gonna compile. There you go, it compiles, and it gives you the list of all the keys, right? And then you see these are the names. Previously we were accessing the values, now we are accessing the keys from our HashMap, right? Now let's move on to the value, right? Cool. So with the value, same thing. Let's first do this. I'm just gonna copy and paste this, and I paste it there, and then we're gonna have to change some few things there. instead of having keys, we're gonna have values. There we go. Then we're gonna have for. There we go. Our type is what? Is integer, right? Integer. So I'm gonna use that. Integer. Then I have a value, right? And then his student, that's a HashMap name, and thank God, or thankfully I managed to say a HashMap without focusing on a dictionary. I guess it took me a little bit of time to actually get to just use the HashMap than a dictionary, but then again I just did a Python video not so long ago, so that's why I'm more focused on dictionary instead of a Python, no, instead of a HashMap. Details, right? Dot values, that's what we discussed right from the slides. Dot values brings or returns an array of all values. Then what you want to do is print system dot out dot print line, and then you print the value, right? There we go. We print the value, and let's see if our compiler is gonna be happy with us. And the compiler is happy with us. And just as I mentioned before, I'm just more of a hard worker, right? So I work hard, which makes it easy for me to just run my program without getting any errors. Like I said, practice and practice and practice will help you improve. Start with getting a bunch of errors, and you get to a point where you start writing programs without getting any errors, unless you get to write or deal with something that is completely new. Then it gets to be a little bit more of those errors. So don't be afraid of getting errors are things that you have to see as a programmer. It's part of your job, it's part of your risk, it's part of you basically. Errors, don't be afraid of errors. That's why there are people that are more familiar with errors, because they've been getting loads of those, and they practiced and practiced and practiced. Coolness, right? There we go. And then we're gonna start, and we're gonna start doing what now, right? So just have this last trick I want to do, which is gonna be, I'm gonna be using a for each loop to print out the value and the key associated with the value, right? The way to do this is I am gonna start, right? So this is just a trick I want to leave you guys with. So for, right, so from what we have learned, we can get, so the first thing we get there, right, you see this part we added, right? This is as adding. And how did we get the value? Where did we get to use the one of the values? It's either the pair or the key. No, it's either the key or the value to get the other. We used the value, we used the key value, we use the key. If I use the key value, I'm talking about key pair, so I don't have to confuse myself or confuse someone else, because when I say key value, what am I saying, right? I know it's the value of the key, but just use a key instead of a key value, because you have a value that is associated with that key, right? So this is where we used the key to get the value. So let's use this part. No, it's this part, and then there, that's where we're going to start playing around. We're going to get our key, and we use the get method to get the value. See how I combined the get method and the key set method, which I'm just going to show now. Don't be confused. So let's do this. There we go. There. So it's key value pair, key value pairs, right? There we go. So we're gonna start. The key is of a string type. Cool. And then we have student details. dot key set. And then what do we have there? It's system dot out dot print line. And then what do we have? We have a key. Just have that text, and then we have student dot details dot get. And I messed up my syntax there, I know. I'm just checking if you guys are awake. I'm sure someone else was like, say you have a mistake there, why are you using dot details? Cool. So let's test this out and see if it's gonna work, and is the compiler gonna be happy with us. And the compiler is happy with us. Just as I mentioned, it takes practice for you to write a code that doesn't get any errors. Today we wrote a code without getting any errors, right? That's interesting. But I guess it's because it's the second month of the August, right? So yeah, I guess that's just that. So this is a way you get to have both the value and the key at the same time, right? So that's just one thing I wanted to show you. So properly aligned, this is this. And you saw how I use my text editor, right? It makes it easy for me to do my coding, and it makes it easy for me to improve my confidence in terms of writing my Java. Because knowing the syntax, I repeat, knowing the syntax wholeheartedly so makes your life easy. Instead of depending on an IDE, you know what the problem is. So you also get to challenge yourself in terms of, this is what I know. No, this is what I don't know. So I have to improve a little bit on that, and so on and so on. So I hope this was a very nice and very interesting video for you guys to watch, and I hope you guys are gonna enjoy, and most importantly, I hope you guys will be able to master these concepts. Until we meet again next Friday, do enjoy your weekend. I know I'm recording this video today on Tuesday, but the moment you see the video, it will be Friday. So I just want to wish you a happy Friday and enjoy the weekend. May the code be with you, and I shall see you guys next week.